Hello and welcome to the All Things Family Show. We're your hosts, Crystal Horton, and I'm Dr. Leonaura Rhodes. Welcome to the show. The All Things Family is a weekly show where we discuss, all things family. So we discuss family life, family dynamics, topics from self-care to time management, stress to parenting skills. Crystal and I are both coaches and authors. We both have books on parenting. And Crystal is a mom of 3 little ones, and I have 2 teenagers who are both taller than me now. So thank you for joining us and welcome to the show. And today we're going to be talking about time management. Crystal, over to you.
Thanks, Leonora. Hello, everybody. I think procrastination is the #1 thief to goals. Some of the top reasons include feeling overwhelmed, confusion, boredom, lack of motivation, and distraction. So, procrastination is not always due to laziness, but it might be emotional to a psychological barrier. So it's important to become aware of our triggers so that they can be defeated. Leonora, why is working on time so important?
Well, before we started the All Things Family Show, Crystal and I did an online survey asking parents, both mothers and fathers, what they wanted more of in their life. And the top thing that came up was more time. Parents were saying they wanted more quality time with their family. They wanted more me time. They wanted more time to have fun. They wanted more just family time in general. So time management is something that is a problem in families because we have so many conflicting demands on our time and energy and attention. And it's really hard to prioritize sometimes. And many parents complain that they end their days having spent a lot of time doing things that really weren't that important to them when there were things that they really, really wanted to get done. For example, a father might really, really want to get home in time to read with his kids before they go to bed. But that means making choices. It may mean leaving work early, or it may mean having to rearrange a work call. So it's both mothers and fathers that can struggle with time management. And many parents, especially if they work, end up feeling this incredible pressure on their time. So it's a skill that it's really important to explore as a parent. And it's also important for helping your children learn to manage their time too. And so I think Crystal and I have both worked with a lot of parents who, one of their top complaints is that they don't have enough time. And one of the things that we can kind of do to help them is to get very clear about what they want to do with the time that they free up, because you want to make your life better if you free up more time by getting more organized and more efficient. And if it's just vaguely, I just want to have more time, then that may not be enough of a motivation for you. It may be that you need to say, I want to be able to go for a bike ride with my kids once a week. Something more solid like that can really help increase the motivation to get time management sorted.
Yeah. And so, what type of tools do you use? Like a paper calendar or more of an electronic type of thing? What do you use?
Well, I think that really depends on the person. I know some people who, it's their phone. I have everything on my phone. It's also on my laptop. It's all synced up. I know other parents who it has to be on paper. Mm-hmm. And then there's people who, use a combination of the two. And I think it's very unique to you. For some people, it's really, really important to physically write something down. Yeah. That helps them remember things. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I keep all of my weekly and monthly stuff on my phone, but every day I write down what I need to do on a Post-it note, because the action of physically writing it down in the morning before the day begins helps me remember it. And sometimes if I go grocery shopping and I've forgotten my list,
Yeah.
I can picture it in my brain because I wrote it, and I wouldn't do that.
Me
otherwise.
too. I'm the same way. I fall into the category of distraction. So I've learned that writing things down at the beginning of the day or right before I go to bed, I have a better productivity throughout the day than as if I try to remember by memory or rely on my phone, because it's not, I have to turn it on in order to see what's in front of me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I, when I work with people who are really, really struggling with time management, I get them to do something at the beginning that's called a time audit, where for maybe 1 or 2 days on a normal day, you wouldn't choose to do it on a day that was unusual, but on a kind of regular day, you write down everything you do during the day in either 15-minute or 30-minute intervals. Mm-hmm. So that you can get really, really clear on where your time is going and whether some of that time is being used on things that really are not important. Because let's face it, all parents are short on time. Mm-hmm. But if you desperately want to spend more time, more quality time with your children, then spending an hour a day on Facebook and then finding that when your children get home, you're having to do other chores because otherwise they won't get done, that's really not good use of your time. And I think the problem with kind of modern life is that it's very easy for time to slip away from you without you really noticing it. It's so easy to get sucked down that rabbit hole of checking email or Facebook or Pinterest or whatever your addiction is. And all of a sudden you've kind of lost hours of the day. Mm-hmm. And working parents too, it's very important. I found when I went back to work after having my children that I was much, much more efficient at work because my time was so much more precious to me. Yeah. So this process of auditing how you spend your time gives you a huge amount of information that can help you decide where your time sucks are and what you need to change about it and get clearer about your priorities.
Yeah,
because we all have the same number of hours in the day. And there are some people, we all have those people who we envy. You may be one of those people that other people envy, but those people that it's just like, they have more hours in the day than me, and they really don't. They're just more efficient with their time. So, and I've worked with a couple of people who are really, really efficient with their time. I'm not particularly, but it's a work in progress. And they are crystal clear about their purpose. They're very organized. They tend to keep a lot of lists, and I think that really helps them focus.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We did as a family, just as you had suggested, we wrote down for a day what we did, and it was a huge eye opener for all of us to realize where we were spending our time.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
What did you find were the places where you were kind of losing time?
Well, I found we discovered that we're a little more relaxed in the evening and more productive as the day progresses. We're relaxed more early morning, late evening. So we realized that we have, late morning through early evening to make sure we use that time for productivity.
Yes.
And so from that, we put together a family command center to kind of help us have it on one of our main walls, since we're good at visual things in front of us.
Yes.
And that has helped a lot, really free up our time to spend more as a family doing things than doing dishes as a family, or kind of getting laundry together as a family. Yeah. And
I think sometimes the process of doing the audit, that alone can just make you it makes you more present about your time and more focused on it. And it's just like, recording what you eat or recording your exercise. Just the activity of recording something can make you more mindful and more focused, which is always worth doing. Always worth doing that. So, Crystal, I have a question for you. How does your family stay on track? Because I know you've got 3 kids and a husband who works full time, and life, it sounds pretty busy.
Yes, it is pretty busy. And just kind of like I've said before, we put together the Family Command Center, which includes one 30-day calendar. It's very large, very big, so that we can, and each of us have a different color. So we write on the days, with our color, who's doing what, where, and what time, so that we all can keep track of that. My oldest daughter is very punctual, and she's into technology things, and she's learning a lot from school. So we delegated the task of her syncing calendars and doing all that fun stuff that she enjoys. So we do that. We have an area where each kid has their own block, I guess you could say, to where, if they need papers to be signed, or if they have a flyer that they want to save, or those kind of things. That's how we keep track of papers, because when the kids come home from school, there's so many projects and math tests and spelling tests that they're really excited about, but we found that they ended up all over the floor, and we ended up throwing them away. So we figured out a system for the papers as well. We have a chore chart, and we also have a dinner chart. Okay. So that, because if I don't know what's going to be for dinner, I stress about it all day long, or if I don't prepare the week ahead, that really becomes a distraction for me and my time of trying to figure out what's dinner, and if we have all the ingredients and that good stuff.
Yes, absolutely. That's a really great idea. It's something I've always wanted to do, but never got around to doing. Every day I'm like, what am I going to cook tonight? And,
yeah.
It's a really good plan. I've worked with a couple of clients who've done similar things where they're very organized about what they eat, and it certainly seems to save a huge amount of stress.
Yes, I find that when we plan out snacks and everything, we write it down on a piece of paper with our grocery list, and then we have it planned out for the week. It relieves so much clutter in my mind of how am I going to put this together. It's no longer my problem, it's our problem, and we solve it.
Yeah. Absolutely. So it sounds like you're a very well organized family.
Well, our wall looks that way.
How do you get your kids to kind of follow? Because you have 3 children, and your oldest is organized and loves that kind of thing. Do the other 2 kind of follow suit as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's not perfect. Please don't think it is. It's not perfect, but I think with the help of my oldest daughter really enjoying and taking on part of the responsibility, it's helped bring us together as a team. So everybody, there's 3 of us, and the other 2 are like, okay, might as well just join in. We're doing it anyways. That type of thing. So that's how we gather together.
Yes. And it sounds like your kids were young enough to get that in place so that it was never questioned. Because I think the problem that, a lot of parents face is that if you don't start these things early on, if you try and introduce them, the later you try and introduce them, the harder it is. Teenagers question everything. So, if you were to suddenly put something like this in place with teenagers, you would find it much, much harder. So it's great to get in early. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't try if you've got teenagers, if you really kind of need to create more time. It's still worth doing this type of thing, but it does get much, much harder. So, any parents of young kids watching, we would both, I think, really urge you to do this early on.
Yes. My youngest was 4 when we started. My youngest was 4. Yeah. And also, I sometimes allow perfection to get in the way. But I notice when I'm writing, because I want it to look nice, if somebody comes over and sees our big wall, that the kids are not as interested. But when it's it's their handwriting and their little drawings on the calendar, even though it's kind of sporadic in different spots and spaces, it means more. They take more of an attachment to it. So I've learned to back off and just, let it be. It works, and just let it be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's very important for children to understand why you're doing something and to be involved in the whole process as well. So I love the fact that you do that with your kids. I think you're instilling some really great habits that, that they hopefully will take into their teenage years and then into adulthood with them.
Yes, that is the hope, but
yeah. Absolutely. I'm sure you'll have at least one rebel in the three.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. No, I'll go through their stages. I do have a question for you, Leonaura. Yeah. In your book, Beyond Soccer Mom, Strategies for a Fabulous Balanced Life, you mention a strange phase of be aware of the distant elephant.
Yes.
What do you mean?
I wish I knew where I'd heard this phrase from, because I love it. So the phrase goes like this: it's beware of distant elephants. And it's something that I talk about in time management. And so if you imagine that you had never heard of or never seen an elephant, and you were popped down in the middle of Africa where there's elephants, and you see an elephant and it's far, far away. Mm-hmm. You would look at the elephant and you would think, oh, wow, that's little. It seems small. Mm-hmm. But as you get closer and closer to the elephant, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, until when the elephant is this close to you, it's this huge, scary creature. And time management is the same. So, for example, if you say yes to something that is several months away, and the example that I use in the book is I was chair of the PTA, Parent-Teacher Association in England for my kids' school, and I said yes to organizing this fair. And it's kind of, 4 or 5 months out, it was like, yeah, that'll be fine. It'll be easy. And as it got closer and closer, it got bigger and more overwhelming until it was like towering over me. And I wish, and then I'm kind of saying, I wish I'd said no to this.
Yeah. I've been
but
there.
It's kind of too late. By the time the elephant's, here, it's too late.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the concept of being really careful about what you say yes to, that is many months away, or something that you don't know how big it's going to become, because that kind of thing can really take over your life. And so it's something I've really learned over the years, to be very cautious about saying yes to projects, whether it be for the children or for work that I don't really know what's involved with it. So, because when it gets close, you can find that, that becomes your full-time job. When I was organizing these fairs, they were my full-time job. And, I was really not having time for anything else. So that's the concept, beware of distant elephants. And I just love the visual of it. This, this thing that was tiny, when it gets up close, it's big and scary and can trample you.
Yes, and it is very, very true.
Yes,
very true. Yes, I love that explanation. I find that a lot of the times when I say yes, I would have the big elephant experience, and then I had to retrain myself to think, okay, if I'm going to say yes, whose other time am I also going to be involving in this?
Yeah.
That don't know it yet, like my husband or my children, and that kind of thing. So thinking, kind of changing my train of thought helped me to start saying no, and to be okay with saying no, because I understand how many volunteers are needed to put things together, and so a lot of the reasons, I have that empathy, so I'm always saying, yeah, sure, yes, we'll be there. And then I realized how much of a problem it was causing. So I became, okay, whose time is this? It's not just my time. It's also my husband's time. It's not going to work. I better say no.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, you're totally right. The story that I was telling about the fairs, when I was kind of right in the middle of that, as it got very close to the event, it was like having a full-time job, to the extent where, I was not having time to go shopping, and we were running out of food, and I wasn't keeping up with the laundry, and all those other things weren't getting done. And I do remember my husband one day saying to me, this is worse than when you were working, and you're not getting paid for this. And I think the other danger, especially if it's something voluntary, saying yes to something big that's voluntary and not for paid work, or not for your family, is that it can really lead to volunteer burnout as well. You kind of reach that stage where it's like, why am I doing this? You set out with really good intentions, but it eats up so much of your time and energy that you start to resent it. And I hear that from a lot of people with volunteering, that can happen to them too. So, So Crystal, I have another question for you. It sounds like you and your family are pretty well organized, or at least trying to be.
Trying, yes.
What challenges do you find in your family, and also with the clients that you work with? What are the kind of common time management challenges?
Well, I find the challenge sometimes of setting the example. For example, as I was talking about procrastination earlier in this show, I procrastinate to do dishes. Okay, so I was procrastinating to do the dishes, but I also started to recognize and become aware that pattern was becoming my children's pattern as well. So my youngest daughter, she loves to do dishes, and she turns each dish into a character, and it becomes this wonderful story. It's her mindfulness kind of thing.
Yeah, cool.
So I wanted to be more like that, to love to do dishes like she did. So I recruited her, and then we started talking about it became our time of connection. And this was when our dishwasher broke. Now it's kind of different, but it became our time of connection, which the other kids, witnessed that and saw the enjoyment that the two of us received from it. So then they started incorporating that, and the next thing you know, the four of us are putting the dishes together. And then my husband, who participates. So there's 5 of us, which turned into, it used to be a 20-minute thing. Now it's a 5-8-minute thing, but it's something to where we figured out how to bond. I turned washing dishes from a procrastination to something that is what I enjoy, bonding with the kids, kind of.
Yes.
So that's kind of where challenges become. When I start to become aware and start to procrastinate, I've got to become a little more creative in how can I make this fun. I'm more of a fun, quirky kind of person. So if something is boring, I'm going to ignore it until it's the big elephant.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that idea. Yes. And I think, anytime you have a task that you're kind of dreading, that you maybe don't enjoy doing, I think, you've really hit on the secret, which is to try and combine it with something that's fun, whether that's with the rest of your family or alone. And, a lot of people, it's so easy now to kind of I listen to books on my phone and podcasts and things while I'm doing the laundry and, the household chores that I don't I just don't enjoy that very much. And that really eases it. It's kind of like combining a treat with, something that's a chore, and that makes it so much easier. And the good thing about particularly things that are very routine and habit driven, like doing housework, is that you can multitask when you do them. That if you're doing something that requires a lot of focus and attention, something that's maybe new or really, really important, and the detail is vital, you really shouldn't be multitasking. It's a false economy. But if you're doing something that's mundane and that you've done a million times before, then you can multitask with it, and you should combine it with something that's fun, you know. Yeah. And I sometimes, you know, in the morning when the kids have left home, and my husband's gone off to work, I put loud music on and I dance around the kitchen while I do the dishes and tidy up the kitchen. And yes. Goodness, my neighbors can't see me because they would think I was crazy.
Yes. But, I just noticed, I want to say a shout out. Hello, Dr. Jenny Coates. Thank you for joining us. Yes, I definitely agree. The more we make it fun, the better it becomes. And then the more time we free up for ourselves and our families.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what are some ways that you and your family manage time?
Yeah, so my kids are now teenagers, and I have to confess that when they were little, I kind of didn't involve them that much in the time management. I was one of those parents who, my kids had a lot of health problems when they were little. It's kind of an excuse, really, but so I would be involved with all of that. And now, as I say, when they're teenagers, it's more of a challenge to get them on board with doing things like that. We have been very conscious in our family about what we say yes to with regard to sport and things like that. I have not encouraged my children to be very overscheduled after school. I think the school day is long enough, and I've coached a lot of teenagers who are really burnt out, where they are, you know, they're doing 6.5 hours a day at school, and then they're coming home and their evening is packed full of activities, and they really don't have any downtime. And it also kind of leads them, like we were saying, it leads them to trying to do two things at once when actually it's not possible. You know, you really can't do homework and be on social media at the same time and do a good job of the homework. Yeah. And when I have coached teenagers, I've urged them to set aside blocks of time where they turn everything else off. It's better to do 30 minutes of very focused homework than it is to spend 4 hours, you know. And I've literally worked with kids who have been doing, you know, 6 or 7 hours of homework a night, or saying they have, but they're not really. They're just so distracted. They are just taking forever to do one little piece of work. So that's kind of something that I've been very conscious of with my kids, seeing it going on around us so much that people are very overscheduled. And, you know, and there are families. I mean, I've got clients with 6 children, with 4 children, and those families, their family life is very busy. Even if you have 6 children and they only do 1 activity a week, that's still a huge amount of time that you're having to organize around your family. So in that kind of situation, what I advise parents to do is to try and do as much as you can. If you're stuck in the car a lot, try and do as much as you can in the car. So, for example, you know, listen to audiobooks. I have one client who we kind of figured out she was stuck driving a lot, and then she was having to drive so far that she was then waiting around for a couple of hours while her kids practiced. And so she would take all her bills. She had been just kind of sitting and chatting to other parents, and she felt like it was wasted time. So she started taking all of her bills with her and doing some of that kind of admin-y stuff while she was sat in the car. So if you can kind of, you know, fit some of that in. As I say, with my family, we've made quite a conscious decision not to overschedule, because we as a family just find that quite stressful, and we don't really cope that well. So I think, you know, it depends on your family. If you're a family that can cope with being busy all the time, then that's fine. That's the choice that you make. And but I think I would urge caution in that, because I've worked with so many people who either the parent or the children have got burnt out by that overscheduling. It can be dangerous. Yeah.
We normally pick one activity for the year to participate in, so it takes up one evening, and the rest are for, you know, for whatever, for to enjoy the rest of the time. My daughter My oldest daughter took on the task of 2 activities this year, and they are 30 minutes after school, back to back, one on Tuesday and one on Wednesday. And she has said several times, I know I made my commitment. I know I've got to do this the rest of the year, but I am not going to do this anymore. So I think that was a great lesson for her to recognize how far she can go and prioritize her things a little more than mom having to tell her.
Absolutely. And I think that brings up a really good point about children really being invested in activities that they take part in. I mean, you know, a lot of parents want their children to be able to play an instrument and a sport and do some volunteering. And, you know, I think as long as the children want to do it for themselves and they're clear about why they want to do it. And sometimes, you know, when they're teenagers and they're heading towards kind of the college university transition, there are some things that you have to do at that stage. I mean, volunteering is one of the things that here in the States, it's really important that the kids have at least some volunteering on their resume. The colleges are kind of, you know, almost insist on it. And so you have to try and fit that in as well. And you know, it's can get very tough for teenagers to fit in all of the things that they feel that the world is telling them to do. And you know, and they find that they don't have enough downtime and enough relaxation time, and that's really important too, to schedule that in.
Yeah, it is really important. So we are rounding the final minutes of our show. It goes by so fast. I certainly enjoy these conversations.
So Crystal, I have one last question for you. In your book, Stretch Marks, you give some examples of how you help your kids stay on track too. Is there anything that you haven't mentioned already that you can kind of give some advice to other parents for how they can get their children involved with this whole process of time management?
Well, I think it's involving children in the process of putting together your time management plan. Because I found, so it took me 3 tries before we found something that worked. And I found the first time I put it all together, and then I said, okay, we're doing this. Yeah. They didn't like that, of course. So the second time I thought, well, maybe we just need something more visual. So I would just put like a breakfast or a morning routine up on the fridge. I thought, okay, this will work, right? No, that didn't work either. And then, you know, as time progressed and ideas went through, finally we came up with that command center, which I've discussed earlier. And that really helped. So I encourage families to involve the entire household, all family members who are participating, so that it's not a project of your own. It is everybody's involvement, and you take pride in it as well. Yeah.
Any tips for people who have parents who have children who are kind of, you know, not that interested in time?
A tip would be find something that, I mean, every child is interested in something excites them somehow, and find a way to include that in with your time management, of a way of delegating. Like, my son is an artist. Okay, let him draw things if he wants, instead of writing. My daughter, my youngest daughter, is a very happy, giggly, encouraging person who could really care less what's going on. So we delegate her to remind us when dinner starts. So now she's becoming aware of, okay, it's almost time for dinner. So she knows to run around and round everybody up and do what she likes. And of course, my oldest daughter enjoys the technology side of things. So she's been delegated the syncing of the calendars for my husband and I, since the kids really don't have that type of thing going on. But so that would be my tip. How about you, Leonora?
Yeah, well, I think, as you say, getting, you know, finding something that your kids are good at and getting them involved in that way. And I think, you know, as they get older, it really comes down to motivation. Find out what will motivate them. And sometimes you have to look really hard. You know, I've worked with a lot of families where the kids are really just not that interested. And, you know, keep on being creative and trying to find what will help motivate your children. Whether, you know, sometimes you have to kind of put a little bribe in there, or, you know, a sticker chart, or work towards, you know, say that, you know, if we do something for 30 days, you'll get a reward at the end of it. Sometimes you have to kind of add those things in if your kids are not so enthusiastic about
Yeah, I agree. I like to explain that, you know, when the kids want to go to a friend's house or they want to participate in something, they like to say, okay, well, I want you to realize, because you participated in this throughout the week, this is what freed up your time to do that. So I kind of go back that way,
that's a good idea.
so that they recognize that, okay, even though I did something I didn't want to do, it allowed me to do this.
Yes.
So I'd just like to thank everyone for joining us today. We are at the end of our show. Please join us next Friday. We're here every Friday. Please join us. We'd love to have you involved and to chat and to participate in our conversation as well. For those watching the replay, woohoo! Please like, share, retweet, comment, and also visit us at allthingsfamilyshow.com. You'll find some interesting strategies there, as well as receiving an ebook that Dr. Leonaura wrote on time management, and a family planner that I put together for your household. Thank you for joining us, everyone, and goodbye for now.
Bye for now.